For today's meditation, we are reading from the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verses 29 to 33. After these things, Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in his own inheritance at Timnath-Serah, which is the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. As for the bones of Joseph, which the people of Israel brought up from Egypt, they buried them at Shechem in the piece of land that Jacob bought from the sons of Hamor, the son of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. It became an inheritance of the descendants of Joseph. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gibeah, the town of Phinehas' son, which had been given him in the hill country of Ephraim. We also read from Judges chapter 2, verse 6 to 10. When Joshua dismissed the people of Israel went each to his inheritance to take possession of the land. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work that the Lord had done for Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. And all the generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. When Moses died, God described him as his servant. Joshua was his assistant. As the leadership passed to Joshua, God encouraged him, saying, "No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go." Joshua was assured of God's presence throughout his life. He spent 20 years in Egypt, 40 years in the wilderness, and now 50 years in the promised land. God used the first 60 years of Joshua's life as a slave in Egypt and an assistant to Moses to prepare him to lead God's people into the promised land. When he took over the mantle from Moses, the whole of Canaan had to be conquered. But God had been training him for war. Earlier, during a battle with Amalekites, Moses went up on a mountain to pray while Joshua and the people were fighting. When Moses lifted up his arms in prayer, the battle turned in Israel's favor. God impressed on Joshua's mind that it was not because of his prowess in battle that they were winning. Rather, it was their dependence on God that explained their victory, as symbolized by Moses' raised hands. Psalmist says in Psalms 144 verse 1, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. He is my steadfast love and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield and he in whom I take refuge, who subdues peoples under me." Joshua was faithful to his calling. Starting with Jericho, he moved forward to conquer the kings one by one. There were heavily fortified cities, and the people who were much numerous than them. Joshua was told 4 times in chapter 1 to be courageous. Perhaps he was very fearful, but he did not shrink back in fear. He overcame every obstacle the enemy put in his path, and he courageously possessed the promised land. Joshua knew his God through faith and obedience. He knew the words of God and he did not turn away from them. He meditated on them day and night, and that was the secret to his success. This is evident from the speeches he made to his people. The history of his life is spread over Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Joshua. In the book of Hebrews, the writer describes by faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. Also, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises. The last chapter of the book of Joshua, he says, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Choose this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua expressed his unalterable determination to serve God to the end of his life. And he had done and was doing. He was faithful to his choice and he was committed to that. Joshua demonstrated the truth that the Lord is his salvation. He submitted to the purposes of God and held on to the promises of God. He encouraged others to choose faith, to move forward in faith and remain committed to the will of God. Like Moses, God called him his servant to the time of his death. He was a great influence upon those who lived in his generation. In verse 31, we read Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua. And all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. Joshua belonged to the tribe of Ephraim. He knew that Joseph had made the people of Israel swear that they would take his bones back to Canaan whenever they left Egypt. Around the time of Joshua's death, with the land of Canaan finally in their possession and divided up to each tribe, Shechem came into the hands of Ephraim. Among his final acts, Joshua made sure that Joseph's bones were put to rest in Shechem, which Jacob had given to his son as a special inheritance. At the time of the gift, Canaan was occupied and Israel was living far away in Egypt. Yet Joshua honored and fulfilled the gift and had given nearly 500 years before through God's grace. Jacob gave the blessing by faith and Joseph received it in faith. Joshua completed the circle of faith by conquering it and possessing it as an inheritance for the tribe of Ephraim. Our Lord is the author and finisher of our faith. Let us look to him with unwavering faith despite our fear. Let us finish our course with perseverance, trusting in the faithfulness of God, who is our salvation. God bless.